Welcome, welcome, Helen. It's so nice to see you again. It's been a while since we've caught up. So I'm really excited about this interview today with you.
Thank you. It's great to talk with you as well. I know just before the interview started, we were like, okay, we've got to get at this because we were catching up on all sorts of personal things. So
Absolutely. Helen and I have known each other now for a couple of years, I think.
probably
Uh,
about four.
yeah. So we've been on a journey. We've been on a journey, and it's a great journey. And we just keep improving and keep upping our game in our business. And that's what makes us so exciting about meeting up again and doing this interview. So, Helen Harwood Snell is, I was going to say, an expert in expanding harmony through communication, intelligence, and storytelling. I know you use that tagline. And Helen, I really think that that is truly you. I've always really thought of you as that kind of person that wants to reach others' lives and help them expand and tell a story about it. Helen, tell us just a little bit about you and your business.
Sure. So just kind of in quick summary, I call myself a storyteller, a business storyteller, and a communication expert. I'm a certified communication coach. And that's really a kind of a glorified way of saying I'm a copywriter. So I do ghostwriting work and copywriting work, but there's a different spin on how I present it because it all is based on communicating effectively. And a big piece of that is storytelling. So there's this alchemy that I like to say joins that creative piece and that kind of scientific piece that pulls that all together for people. Whether it's a short biography or a whole book that you want me to write for you, it is available with that whole premise of that alchemy of those two systems together.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Now, Helen, explain alchemy to the audience because so many of us may not know exactly what that means in your eyes.
Sure. So alchemy is it's almost like magic. So alchemy is there's a great book. Anybody who actually wants to read a wonderful business book called The Alchemist, I highly recommend you pick that up. It is the alchemy, it can be applied to anything in life, but it's kind of like that magic place of meeting where systems align, where your life and your business align, where your spiritual life and your physical life align. There's just this magic there, and that's what I really. I mean, it lights me up, and I hope it lights my customers up as well, that there is this magic of connecting how you communicate and maximizing the audience that you can reach, but also personalizing that because that's such a big part of our journey as entrepreneurs is to step into our brand and be the person, not the business. So that's alchemy in the way that I explain it in my work.
That is awesome. And that was the teacher in me from my teaching years is like so many people probably doesn't know the meaning of that. And you brought it out and you made it shine even more and utilizing it as the magic that is spot on. And I love that about you. And you are magic. You can touch people's lives in different ways and bring it out so that others see it and hear it and feel it. And that is so important when you're writing is for others to feel it,
Mhm.
for it to go in your head and in your minds and soak in and even sometimes go down your spine, right? Because that's
Absolutely.
storytelling. When you talk
Yes.
about any kind of storytelling, even from nursery rhymes up to teen books that are out there and they create movies and then, even adult books, you wanted people to feel your excitement or your pain or whatever it is that you're talking about. You want people to realize it, see it, and feel it. And
Yes.
that's the magic of storytelling, story writing. getting it out there. So there was a somewhere that I read about you, Helen, that you stated, tell a story, change the conversation. What does that really mean to you? What is that vibe you get when I read that to you, even though it's your words, but hearing someone else say it, how does that vibe with you and what you do?
Yeah. So again, that you've done some research, because that is a tagline that I used to use. Keep changing them all the time, right? Because we've got to be dynamic in our businesses. But yeah, that's I think that actually still might be on my LinkedIn profile. I'm not sure. But what that encapsulates for me is, again, if we talk about the creative part of storytelling and then the scientific part of storytelling. And so the creative part, I want to start there first, because I want to let people know that you don't have to be a novelist. You don't have to be, even capable of writing a children's storybook. To tell a story in business is not the same. There's a similar framework, but all you need to do is be able to make a connection with the main character of the story that you're sharing, and the main character of the audience that you're talking to. And that's where you were talking before about that feeling that might run down your spine or lights up your heart or whatever that might be. So that's the creative piece. The science piece is actually where that phrase speaks to. If you begin a conversation with lots of facts and lots of data, if someone feels that they're being sold to, there is an immediate kind of shutdown of the brain. And if you tell a story, I actually just did a whole series of this on my social media this past week about the science connected to storytelling. There's actually a physical change in your brain when you hear a story that you relate to, that it shuts down that kind of amygdala response that puts you in a protective mode, and it actually makes you, like, you lean in. When somebody tells you a story, you want to know the outcome of that story. And so it changes the conversation. It physically changes the chemical reaction in the brain. And there's lots of other things too. It lights up all these different parts of the brain. It elicits one of the hormones that's like a pleasure response, all of those things. So if you think of yourself in a sales conversation with someone and you can elicit a pleasure response, if you can get someone to lean in and want to know more about you and be excited about the conversation, that absolutely changes the conversation.
Absolutely. And being a speaker and teaching others how to speak and build their businesses, connect, network, collaborate. So many things we do in our business that we don't even realize we do. But when I'm talking to someone one-on-one, in person or virtual, in a big audience, you can always know when you have someone's attention. But guess what? You really know when you're not getting their attention. And you have to do something. You have to do something that moment when you're noticing that your audience, one-on-one or 100, it doesn't matter, when they start reaching for their phones or their tablets, or they start answering their questions or nodding off, you have to do something. Hit the desk, get in their faces, lean into them. But guess what? When you're a writer, you can't do that. You have to get it other ways. And
Yes.
that's what Helen teaches, is other ways of doing it. Because when I'm speaking and I lose the audience, I can lean in, I can raise my voice, I can lower my voice, I can hit the desk with some excitement. But with writing, you have to do it in a different way,
Yes.
so that your readers are interacting with your story. They're feeling it. So very good, Helen. I'm really glad that you did split it up into those two theories. I'm sure there's lots of other theories, but the scientific part, that's critical. I feel like that's really critical, knowing where it's coming from and why you put it in there. So another one that I want to give you, that I want you to give your heartfelt and soul felt interaction to, is Bring your personality into your business with simple strategies to connect and close more clients. And I want you to talk about that just for a minute, please.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of touched on it briefly earlier that as an entrepreneur, you are your brand. And so people actually don't buy your product or your service. I could be selling a lipstick and 5,000 other people on Instagram could be selling you a lipstick. People buy who you are. And so that's why it's so important to connect with not only, why that lipstick is important to you, or how great it makes you feel, or how great it made you feel helping other people. It's all about who you are, that person wants to have trust in, to actually give their money to. But it's such a different world now when we kind of look at the progression, let's say, of internet access. Back in the day, if you had a website and people could click on your website and see what your product was, that was awesome. That's not the case anymore. A website now is almost just like a place card. It's like a placeholder because there's so many other moving pieces. And those moving pieces are networking and speaking events and social media, where people get to see who you are as a person to decide if they want to go to your website and click that button, right? It's not just I want a lipstick anymore. It's I want a lipstick from a person whose opinion I trust, who supports a company maybe that's like environmentally friendly or whatever it is. Those are all of the things that you need to bring out with your personality. And sometimes, and I would actually say to listeners, oftentimes, especially on your social media or in your newsletters that you put out, it isn't about the lipstick at all. It's about you, who you are as a person. And LaDonna, that's one thing I love about you whenever we speak, whether it's personally or I hear you speaking from the stage, you bring your family into it. And that's such a big part of who you are. And as a coach, for someone to know that that's the core of your personality, is this nurturing, caring person, is going to make them think that's what I want in a coach. And so it's so important that that's what shines through in your messaging, is who you are as a person.
Absolutely. I mean, hammer on the nail. I mean, it's like, and it's amazing. And when you said the website is like a place card, you know, it's an expensive place card, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We must have it because people don't think we're important without it. You're not in business without it. You don't take your business effectively and the importance without it, but it does nothing for you without you. And I so agree with that because it's being your authentic self.
Yes.
I can't be Helen. Helen is the only one that can be Helen. No matter how hard I try to be Helen, I'll never be Helen. And you know what? If I ever try to be Helen to my clients, it's going to show up that I'm trying to be someone I'm not.
Yes.
In once you lose that trust, you will probably never gain it again
Yeah.
because people want you to be authentic, real. They want a person. They don't want the internet. They don't want the computer when they're looking for authentic. I want to know her, like her, and trust her.
Yeah.
You know, Helen, when I go, I do, as you know, I'm all over social media. My business, my family, my kids, my grandkids, we're all over social media because that is who I am. Most people know I'm married to my high school sweetheart for 40 plus years. And I have been called upon to come and join summits and different platforms to talk about being married for so long. That's not what my business is about, but in some way it is, right? Because like
Yes.
you said, it's who I am. It's
Yes.
me. And my business has to be about me if I want to come across authentic.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people miss out on gaining clients, customers, friends, those connections, the
Yes.
beginning of the connections. You know, I want everyone to know when they go on social media and they see me that they want to be a connector. You know, I have one connection, a networker. We're way above that. We are truly virtual sisters. And I remember the first time she came to me and I asked her, how do I know you? Where did you find me? She said, I've seen you on social media. Then I Googled you and you were everywhere. And I said to myself, I want to be like her. So I connected.
Yeah.
Wow, my heart was filled. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that people notice me like that. Now I know all people don't, but majority does, right?
But
So
that's the important thing too, LaDonna, that I want to point out is not everyone does because they're not your customer. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of in showing their authenticity because they want to try to serve everyone. You can't do that. I spoke at a summit recently, a woman who her whole business is about, she wrote a book about online dating and relationships, and she does a podcast about fathers, which I think is great because she's a woman and she does this podcast about fathers. Anyways, that the whole premise of that is instead of trying to serve everyone um with some kind of savvy marketing pitch, it's just all about her wanting to make sure people are safe in their online dating process, giving people hope for people that are, over 40 and having to start over, whatever. So not everyone's going to be her customer. And I think as a coach, people have to realize that too, that some people want a coach that's going to give them, here's the ABCs, here's a system you can follow. Somebody else is going to want somebody to hold their hand a little bit more like what you offer, right? Somebody else is going to want someone who's like, hey, I can get you to 6 figures in 30 days. If I hear that pitch, I shut it off. That's just not me at all, right? Because I just don't feel that that's authentic. But for some people, that's exactly what they need to hear. And so that's why you have to show up as who you are, because that's going to attract the clients that want to deal with you. And that's what's so important about authenticity.
absolutely. You know, I teach and I say almost every day, even when I'm not in coaching with a client or group, it's even one-on-one sometimes just connecting. I mean, my thing is everyone is not our people. We want everyone to be our people, but they're not.
No,
Some people are not going to want to be my people. And guess what? Sometimes I don't want people to be my people, those certain people, because if I don't
absolutely.
feel like I can help them, connect with them, network with them, build a business with them, my bubble is only so big. And when I tell people that's prime real estate in that bubble, prime real estate. So if we can get together at this time in our lives and work together, you belong in that real estate in my bubble. But maybe it's not you today. I'm not saying not forever, but some people are not ready for me today.
Yep.
And it can be different reasons. It can be my personality, how I speak, um, what
Could
I
even be
teach.
the level that they're at in their business, right? Where they're at in their journey. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
that's so true. And that's again, I kind of want to go back to that idea. I can't remember what it is that you had just mentioned about um oh, trying to be me, trying to be someone you're not. So again, in your audience, if there's anyone out there who's part of a network marketing business, and LaDonna, both you and I have experience with that too, that's actually what got me on my storytelling journey, is because I realized, I used that example earlier of selling a lipstick, but whatever product it is, you also don't necessarily have the same personality as the company that you're working for or whoever your upline might be. And so that can be really discouraging to people if they feel like, oh, I need to fake it till I make it. I need to do this. I need to follow all their training, do whatever it is they say. Sometimes that works for people, sometimes it doesn't. And so you need to be able to find your own journey, your own story within that brand. That's what actually led me on this whole idea of story branding, was finding my own story and then realizing how many other people needed that too.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Wow. Um, Helen, the next thing is we all want to be the hero in our story. Let's talk about that.
You have done your research, girl. I'm enjoying this. This is so much fun. Yeah. So again, if you think of going to a movie or reading a book, what happens is you become connected with that hero. You find something of yourself in that hero. And if you're working with someone, or if you're listening to someone present from stage or whatever that may be, you become pretty bored if they talk about themselves all the time. You want them to talk about how they can pull you into their story, or how they can change your hero journey. That, I mentioned earlier that storytelling business isn't that complicated, but it does follow a model called the hero's journey. And it was the kind of the writing premise was developed by Joseph Campbell many, many years ago. And it's based on the story of a hero. But in every life, we want to be our own hero. We want to realize that we've overcome obstacles. We want to, we're all a little self-centered. So we everything's about us, right? Whether it's our families, our business, we're the center of our world, and we can't help it. That's just the way we are. So the whole idea again around storytelling, especially if you're on social media or if you're sending out newsletters or sales copy to people in any fashion, is to tell a story in a way that relates to the person who's reading that copy. Or if, again, speaking from stage, if you're speaking, you need to relate to your audience for them to see themselves in the story that you're telling. This is, little Victoria, and this is the journey that she took, and the person can relate to that Victoria and what that journey is, because they see themselves in that story. And that's the whole part around certain personality types who want to talk about what they've done, who they've become, how great their business is, and you should want to come along with them. People don't really want to hear that. They want to hear, I became great in my business because I helped other people, because I overcame this obstacle, because I whatever. So it's all about that hero and finding yourself connected to that, because then you can see the hero in yourself.
Absolutely. We go back to way back, and as my grandchildren say, the dinosaur years when I was a child. Is that you like the little rhymes, twinkle twinkle little star. Didn't we all, and don't we still, when we hear that, we want to feel like we're floating up there in the star, like the stars do. And even like Cinderella, when you watch that and hear about it, doesn't every little girl want to be Cinderella? We don't want to be where she came from, but we want to be who she became, right? We
But
all
aga-
want to be
again,
Cinderella.
again, that's the recognition that, no, you don't necessarily live with an evil stepmother and two horrible stepsisters, but you recognize a piece of yourself that is downtrodden or not shining in the light, right? That's the thing around Cinderella that we resonate with. Not everyone wants to become a princess. I certainly don't want to become a princess, but we recognize the plight, we recognize the journey, right? And that's why so Disney is probably one of my favorites. I watch Disney movies with my youngest all the time. um that's why we recognize with those stories, because it's so easy to see that hero pattern, right? Mulan, I love Mulan because she's like a badass, right? But
Exactly.
but it's still the same thing. It's someone who wasn't allowed to shine for who she was. She was a woman, so she wasn't supposed to be a warrior, all these kind of things. it's actually the same story of Cinderella. If you think about it in that term of hero and the journey and how we relate to that and how they became what they wanted to become at the end of that story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I can be tough when it comes to talking. If I need to talk to someone tough because they're not doing me right or my family right, I can talk tough. I can talk mean, but I can't fold up my hands and be a boxer like some of those movies as a woman or a karate expert. But when I watch those movies, Helen, or read those stories, I want to be that woman just
Right.
for a short time in my life, because there's a few people out there that maybe I want to show them I can be tough with my hands or with my feet, But
Yeah.
again, isn't that part of the story? That's
Again, it's
part of the
if
writing
you
of the story.
yeah, if you think of it in its simplest terms, it's empowerment. That's what it's doing for you, is it's empowering you to feel that you could go out there and karate chop somebody's back or whatever, right?
Exactly.
That's what it is. You would probably never do it, but it's that feeling that it brings up in you that says, I am a hero. I can go out and do these things. I'm empowered.
Exactly. Because
Absolutely.
I'm not a person that can go out and hurt another person. I'm not. That's not in my heart. That's not who I am. But just knowing that maybe, it's just like you said, that empowerment. I visited my brother a few weeks ago, and my niece says, I love the Black Widow. That's her thing. And I'm like, why? And then I came home and I said, why did she say that to my husband? And then he explained it to me, because I'd never really, that's not part of the series that I've ever watched or read about.
Yeah.
And so now I understand it's that empowerment. It's what she does and stands for. And I mean, again, I wouldn't get a tattoo on my arm of it, but she did. And that's her thing. But it's that
Yeah.
empowerment. It's the story. It's that tagline that fills us for a short term or long term. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's our story. So,
Absolutely.
Helen, you have something every Tuesday called Tuesday Tells.
Hmm.
I'd like for you to tell us about that and how you help transform lives through that series that you do.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, you need to sign up to be a guest on there. We've been talking about that for a while. Um, yeah, so Tuesday's Tales started as sometimes it's hard for people to capture the idea of storytelling. And so I started doing that myself for all of 2023, where I just told a story about something that happened to me that week or related to something that happened in the news. And then what I would do is make a business analogy for my own business, but then I would also highlight three other businesses. It could be somebody who was a clown, somebody who ran a storefront business, somebody who was a fitness coach, whatever. And I would um, convert that story over for each of those businesses because I wanted people to see what storytelling actually is and how simple it is to do. And then this year, at the beginning of 2024, I began inviting guests on because I think on a platform like that, it's always more fun to have a conversation with someone than to just talk yourself. And so what I did is I kind of did what I think is the best of both worlds. I introduced someone, I let the world know more about who they are, both as a person and as a business owner. And then I tell a story for their business based on that interview at the end of the conversation that they could turn around and use in their business. And sometimes those are really impactful for people. I've had lots of comments back where people say, oh my goodness, like I never realized how that thing that happened in my childhood is, such a great analogy for me to use in my business or whatever. And so it's become a little bit of a podcast, I guess. It's not professionally polished at all, and it's live. It's just a great way to highlight people because I'm a big fan of promoting people, as well as promoting what I do in my business, all wrapped up in one little package every Tuesday at 5 p.m. EST.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. And I think it's really says something about us as a business owner, but also as a person when we can sit here and do interviews or podcasts or just talking one on one about what's going on in our lives. And it's way more important that we get to figure out how we can help each other, not just
Yes.
myself, but also Helen, also that other person. You and I are sitting here talking, but how many lives are we impacting that listens to us, that hears us? We never know because sometimes they don't come on and tell us, but we know it is happening because every once in a while, someone will contact us and say, wow, I seen you with Helen and you talked about this and it really resonated with me. That is powerful. Right.
Yes.
I'm going to give you an example right before we wrap up is that right now I'm trying to figure out, Helen, and I know you and I are going to talk about this later, is that how I put my childhood into my story because I think it's powerful for people to know that just because where you came from doesn't mean that you have to stay there and that you can still be a powerful person and impact others' lives in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
again, I know that's part of my story, and I want people to shine, even if I impacted only one person's life. Wow. What if
Mm-hmm.
every one of us could change someone's life to the positive?
Yes.
Help someone get out of a battle, a trauma, a theory that they're living in, whatever that may be. I feel like there's no worse or better. It's all a battle of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, I think that all goes back to telling your story in the real way, but correctly.
Yes, and that touches, full circle right back to when you introduced me at the top of the podcast here, the interview, and you mentioned the idea of harmony is such an important element in my business, and that speaks to exactly what you're talking about there. I feel that when we can improve our communication, when we can improve our storytelling, when we can connect with people as who we are authentically, that is just going to increase the harmony in the world. When we're not pretending to be someone else, when we're not, thinking we need to behave a certain way. I actually know two different people in their businesses who swear like truck drivers all the time. And it's part of their brand. And I'm like, good for you, because they're showing up for who they are, right? There's not everyone is going to want to work with that. But I'm like, that's so fun that you're just embracing who you are. Um, and so I think that whole like I think harmony starts with ourselves. We have to be in harmony in our own bodies, in our own minds, in our own souls, and then to be able to share that out with the rest of the world. And so I love that you said, we could just change one person's life. That seems so small and insignificant, but if everybody could do that for one other person, it would be a whole different world out there, right?
Absolutely. I want to
Yeah.
wrap up with one thing, and then we're going to wrap this session up. And I think it's really, really important in our society today with all the changes that has came our way, and I don't see it going away. It's just going to continue to scale up. And Helen, you and I never talked about this, but I know you're going to come up with a great answer. Is why do we need Helen if we have AI? And you've already answered
Oh,
this all in this segment, but I want you to iterate with that because I think a lot of people miss out on why do we need a Helen if we have AI?
yeah. Thank you for that. I think, well, I want to explain it to you first of all in a meme that I saw last week. Somebody put a meme on their social media page that said, I think we need to use AI to like do all of our cooking and our household cleaning and all of those kinds of chores and let us show up in our business. And that's exactly, I think, a perfect way to talk about AI. It is, you're right, it's not going away. Um, I've even heard conversations where at some point we're going to be integrated with it ourselves electronically, which is kind of scary. But I would say this, there's only a certain amount of assistance, because it is an assistant, that you're going to get from, if you think about AI, it is grabbing information from the internet. That's all it's doing. You ask it a question and it's going to find things that are already out there. So that's one thing I think people need to be aware of is all it's going to do is access information that already exists. So number one, that's not authentic because it's already out there. And number two is there's no way it can become your personality unless you spend an inordinate amount of time. And you can, I don't want to knock it because you can give it instructions. You can say, no, that's not my tone of voice. I need you to change to this. I need you to do that. I need you to do this. I think it's a great way to generate ideas. But in terms of showing up authentically in the world, in terms of spending our time on the things that I think matter in our business, one of the most important things is being authentic. And AI cannot do that for you.
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to hear from you. Authentic. And I want to reiterate that. Be authentic. Without that, you lose out. You lose customers. You lose clients. You lose connections. And, I spend time on AI every day. I will not lie. I utilize it as a assistant, as a VA, as a thought process. And I do a lot of work with other people, and they'll send me something that they want on their website or post or whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not them.
Yeah.
They probably don't even know what that word means, And like for me, there's a lot of words I can't even pronounce. I don't know if you know this, Helen, and when I was a child, I could not speak well.
I remember we had a
called
conversation about that.
tongue-tied. I thought I knew how to speak because guess what? My mother spoke that way. My father spoke that way. I thought I spoke well, but I didn't. Most people couldn't even understand me when I started school in first grade. I didn't get to start in kindergarten because my parents couldn't afford it. Back then, you paid for it. So I started in first grade and I would get laughed at. So for me to get up in an audience now and speak, you would never think. But there are words that I cannot, still to this day, pronounce correctly. And I'm okay with that because I'm not perfect. But who is?
Yeah. And you're not, a university English professor. So
nope, don't want to be either, So why would I put words out in my post that I cannot pronounce, know the meaning of, have any idea? Well, there's a lot of times when I put something into AI, it'll come back with words that I cannot pronounce. I don't know the meaning of. Could I go and look up the meaning? Absolutely. But is that authentic? No.
Well, and is it a good use of your time, right? So, I go back to the whole idea with social media. I have a friend who uses AI for a lot of her posts. And every now and then she shows up live and does something as herself. And I stop and I watch those because it's her. And the other stuff that comes up, I'm just like scroll because it doesn't capture me. It's not, you said before, if you're giving a speech, there's lots of things you can do to engage the audience. When you're on social media, when you're sending out a newsletter, you've only got so much time to capture somebody's attention. And sure, video and colorful graphics and things like that are helpful, but the words have to keep you reading. And if they're just here's some, 3 steps to whatever. That's not always engaging for people. Personal conversation, personal glimpses into somebody's life, experiences that they can share to show you what their product or what their service is going to be to help you. That's so much more engaging. And like AI simply can't do that. Just can't
Absolutely.
do it.
Absolutely. It's all about that key word, authentic. And I want to wrap up this session by saying thank you so very much, Helen. I know that we've all learned something, or it was that, oh, I used to do that. Why don't I do that now? Or, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Sometimes in business, we get wrapped up on how can I do things different, different, different. Sometimes we just need to go back to the foundation where we started from and climb above again. I really
Yes.
believe that, and do it wholeheartedly so that it really is coming across to people authentic. Make people laugh, make people become serious, make people reach out to you. That's what we all need and want. So, with that, I am going to end the session today. Thank you so very much for tuning in, everyone, and keep every day authentic. Bye bye now.
Bye.